The 27th United Nations Climate Change Conference is coming at the end of a year that's seen a number of devastating climate-related events around the world. 50,000 attendees, including over 100 world leaders, are in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt over the next 2 weeks for discussions and negotiations.
Friends, let me begin.
Last year's summit in Glasgow saw UN member states agreeing to a number of pledges, including phasing down the use of coal, ending deforestation by 2030, and submitting new climate action plans to the UN. However, only 29 of 194 countries have come forward with tightened plans so far. At the opening summit, Simon Steele, the UN's Climate Change Executive Secretary, warned countries against backsliding on commitments.
29 countries had come forward with tightened national plans since COP26. 29 is not 194. So here I am now, looking out at 165 countries that are due to be revisiting and strengthening their national pledges this year. We made this agreement together only last year. I am not in a habit of rescinding on my word. I firmly expect all parties to act the same way.
Steele also asked governments to focus on 3 key areas during COP27. The first is implementing the Paris Agreement by putting negotiations into concrete actions. The second is stepping up financial commitments and cementing progress on responses to climate change. And the third is delivering on the principles of transparency and accountability. Following intense negotiations, member states have also agreed to discuss specific financing for vulnerable nations who are left with damages caused by climate change.
I particularly welcome the agreement of the parties to include a new agenda item on funding arrangements to respond to loss and damage. This creates, for the first time, an institutionally stable space on the formal agenda of the COP and the Paris Agreement to discuss the pressing issue of funding arrangements needed to deal with existing gaps in responding to loss and damage.
As thousands gather in Egypt's coastal city for the largest annual event on climate action, there are worries over how much progress will be made. A new report published by UN Climate Change shows that whilst countries are bending the curve of global greenhouse gas emissions downward, efforts remain insufficient to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. It is therefore crucial that delivering on the legally binding Paris Agreement is at the center of discussions over the next 2 weeks. And COP27 drives implementation of urgent and credible climate action. Leila Johnson Salami, Arise News.